ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Saving the NWA. Welcome to episode 1, which, as I said before, is going to be the Crockett Cup. Again, this episode may split into 2 parts depending on the length of it, but I do plan to do all 3 nights of the Crockett Cup in this episode. As I said, if it stretches too long, it may end up being 2 parts, night 1, night 2 this part, and the final in the next part, but we'll see how long it goes. As I said before, I'm not going to show you all the booking process because I don't want this episode to be about 3 hours long. I'm just going to show you the results of each of the shows, just exactly how you would see it on TV. And if I go to the booking, you can see I haven't booked anything yet. I still have to book the show. I'll book it off camera and then I'll show you the results. But the one thing I will show you so far is the actual bracket for the Crockett Cup 2025. So if I get this up now, we'll see. It is an 8-team tournament full of teams from the NWA. Some are pre-established teams, others are teams that you may have never seen before. So in our opening quarterfinal, we have the Country Gentlemen against Jeremiah Plunkett and Spencer Slade. This, as I mentioned before, is the team of the Diamonds in the Rough, so managed by Simon Diamond. In our second quarterfinal match, we have the Immortals against Blake Troop and Jake Dumas. In our third, we have Judas and Mike Sidal against Blunt Force Trauma, BFT. And then finally, we have the Fixers against the Slimeballs. So one of these teams will be winning the NWA Crockett Cup this year and will go on to face Knox and Murdoch for the NWA World Tag Team Champions at a future date. But with that all said and done, I will go and book the show now, and I will see you in the results. So, we kick off night 1 of the NWA Crockett Cup with a pre-show match where we had Evan Rivers and Dylan McKay defeat Dante Leon and Barrett Brown in 7 minutes and 4 seconds when Rivers pins Barrett Brown. The reason this is on the pre-show is because basically this is more of a tryout match for these 4 guys to see if they're good enough to make it to the main roster. Again, most of these did do quite well. It got a 35. Was quite a decent match, and we may see some of these in the future. But we now move on to the main show, which starts with, if it loads through, a 65 rated, an excellent rated segment. It opens with EC3. He's in the ring. He says that today starts a new era of the NWA, and a new era deserves a new NWA champion. He reveals that there will be a 4-way number 1 contenders match in the main event tonight, and the participants will be revealed throughout the show. Obviously, a fantastic start. EC3 is going to be one of the men that is in the 4-way tonight, but we'll see the other participants as we go through the show. But then we move to our first match, which is a match between Tom Latimer and Daisy Kill, which gets a 35 after Tom Latimer defeats Daisy Kill in about 8 minutes with a curb stomp. Again, this was just to get Tom Latimer as the NWA champion on the show. It's not for the belt, it was just to see how these both would perform. Tom Latimer doing quite well with a 37 and Daisy Kill not so great with a 23. If we move on to our next match, it ends up with a 40. Very good match indeed, considering who's in this match, where the Immortals beat Blake Troop and Jake Dumas in 6 minutes and 26 seconds when Odinson pins Blake Troop with the F10. Again, the first match of the Crockett Cup. Odinson clearly being the MVP of this match with a 43, with everyone else slacking behind. But the Immortals will move on to the semi-finals of the NWA Crockett Cup. We then move to Austin Idol backstage with Zion. He says it's time Zion wins gold once again in the NWA, and he reveals that Zion is going to be the second man in the 4-way number 1 contenders match tonight in the main event. So we've got EC3 and we've got Zion. Then backstage once again, we have Kenzie Paige. She's backstage with both her belts, the NWA Women's Championship and the Women's Tag Team Championship. She's trying to decide which one she likes best, and she's leaning more towards the Women's World Championship. So we'll see how that begins to develop with her and Big Mama being the NWA Women's Tag Team Champions. We then move on, I believe, to our third match of the night, which isn't a great match, let's be real. It's a 31. Apparently, the Fixers have no chemistry at all as partners. It's a good thing they then lose to the Slime Balls in 8 minutes and 43 seconds when Sage Chance pins Legursky with a fast roll-up. So the Slime Balls are the next team to advance in the Crockett Cup. Again, not a great match, but Sage Chance and Rant work well together, but unfortunately, not quite Bradley and Legursky. We then move on to an even worse match with a 29. This was a champion versus champion match to see how they both get on. Mims came to me before the show with a creative finish idea, which was a failure, as you can see. But Mims defeats Carson Drake in about 10 minutes when Drake intentionally gets counted out as he just walks out. His belt's not on the line, he doesn't really care. Mims has the momentum, so he just decides to leave. Quite a coward from Carson Drake, but we'll see how that develops between both champions. We then go to the Southern Six. They're outside in their clubhouse. They're furious about not being involved in the Crockett Cup or the number one contenders four-way, ruling all three men out of that match tonight, and say they'll have to find their own way to the top of the NWA card. We then move to our third NWA Crockett Cup match as Mike Sidal and Judeus do in fact lose to the team of Blunt Force Trauma. Mike Sidal making his debut, Judeus probably making his final NWA appearance. Mike Sidal did quite well, so he probably will be sticking around, mainly in the junior heavyweight division. But Blunt Force Trauma do advance to the semi-finals. So both Damage and Carnage make it through. If we then move, there we go, Damage is saying Aaron Stevens is better off without him as his manager, so we may have to rectify that off camera. But then if we move on to Father James Mitchell backstage. He is backstage with Max The Impala. It is revealed that this entire time Father James Mitchell has been behind the actions of Max The Impala. Obviously, or later last year, Max The Impala turned on Father James Mitchell. Apparently, this was all a ruse. He says that Max will be in the four-way tonight and they plan on destroying everyone. So we've now got EC3, Zion and Max The Impala in the four-way number one contenders match tonight. One spot remaining and we'll see who that ends up being. But then we move to our next match and the final quarter-final match from the NWA Crockett Cup as the newly formed Diamonds in the Rough of Jeremiah Plunkett and Spencer Slade do beat the United States Tag Team Champions, the Country Gentlemen. Gets a 32. Again, it's not the best match, but it is a good way to get the Diamonds in the Rough over. Again, Casey Kasana may or may not be with us for the foreseeable future, but at the moment we are mainly focusing on the Diamonds in the Rough, and we'll see how they get on throughout the rest of the tournament. We'll then move on to one more match between Mike Mondo and Brian Idol. Again, not the best match. Both men very much off their game. We've got Mike Mondo beating Brian Idol in about 13 minutes with a sit-out facebuster. This is a story I am running between the two. Again, Mike Mondo is someone I do sort of want to build behind. He is quite entertaining. If you've ever seen him on NWA programming, he is probably one of the shining stars of the NWA at the moment. So he is someone I do want to build behind. But if he keeps getting 27s, maybe I'll change that decision. But at the moment, he beats Brian Idol with a sit-out facebuster. We then move to Colby Corino. He is backstage and he reveals himself to be the final participant in the number one contenders four-way match that is up next. So our final participant has been revealed to be Colby Corino, meaning that the main event tonight, which is going to be up next, is EC3, Zion, Max The Impala, and Colby Corino. That, as I said, is up next, and it gets, again, not great, but a 39. In a good match, Max The Impala prevails, beating Corino Zion on EC3 when she pins Colby, or when they pin Colby Corino. Again, the match was not the best, but obviously all 4 participants do get quite high ratings, but the match itself may not have been the best. But Max The Impala is the new #1 contender to Tom Latimer's World Championship. We'll have to see how this goes on throughout the weekend, as it may stay the same, it may change. We'll never know, but we'll see when we get to the final. So Max The Impala and Tom Latimer will face off in the main event of the Crockett Cup Sunday in the final. But so far, if we finish the show, we'll see what rating we got. Right, so I don't know why it's quite skipped over it, but the show got a 44 with a 542 person attendance in the Austin Sports Centre in Mid-South. About 21,000 viewers on the IWTV. So quite a good show, quite a decent turnout. It did give us quite a popularity boost in some regions, but we'll see how the rest of the weekend goes. So I'll now see you in night 2 of the Crockett Cup. Right, welcome back to night 2 of the Crockett Cup, where we're kicking it off straight away with a pre-show match between Dylan McKay, CC Boost, Evan Rivers and Matt McIntosh. Again, we've seen a couple of these guys before, but it's Dylan McKay that gets the win in about 7 minutes when he pins Matt McIntosh with a shooting star press. Again, Dylan McKay was supposedly really off his game, but got the best, or the joint best performance in the match with 37. Evan Rivers benefited from having a groundswell of public support, but only gets a 26. So maybe we'll be looking at Dylan McKay to come in to fill out that junior heavyweight division a bit. But now we move on to the main show, which kicks off with a 43 rated match between Kenzie Paige as she defends her NWA World Women's Championship against debuting Laney Luck. Get a 9-minute 1-second match. Kenzie Paige goes over with the Kenzie Cutter. She gets a rating of 47, Laney Luck of 26. A strong start to the show, and it gets the crowd hotter. So a good opening match. Defense number 27 for the NWA World's Women's Champion, Kenzie Paige. We'll then move on to a promo by Kenzie Paige. She said she's sick of facing nobodies like Laney Luck and wants a real star to come out and face her tomorrow night. So we'll see who that is on night 3 of the Crockett Cup. We then move from Kenzie Paige to a impromptu NWA United States Tag Team Championship match, in which the Southern Six, with Alex Taylor and Kerry Morton, defeating the Country Gentlemen. So we have new NWA United States Tag Team Champions in the Southern Six. Again, Alex Taylor and Kerry Morton are the new NWA United States Tag Team Champions. Again, was just a way to get it off the Country Gentlemen, who, as you can see by the ratings, are not the best. But after that, we then move, I believe, to our first round, or our second round match of the Crockett Cup. Again, the semi-finals. And again, in a decent match, the Slime Balls defeat Blunt Force Trauma after Sage Chance pins Damage with a quick roll-up. Again, a 36 rated match. Carnage, that's Marsh Rockette. He carries the match in terms of in-ring performance. He is a far better in-ring performer than everyone else in this match. So it may end up, once Blunt Force Trauma split up, he may come back as a singles competitor. But we have our first finalists for the Crockett Cup, and that is the Slime Balls, Sage Chance and Tommy Rant. So then we move from this to Silas Mason defeating Paul Burchill in about 7 minutes 46 seconds. And again, it was just a way to get Silas Mason on the card and to see how well Paul Burchill does. Again, got a 36 match. Not the best, but again, could have been worse. But again, was just a way to get Silas Mason on the card. We then move to a match between Mike Mondo and Mike Sidal, the Battle of the Mikes, where Mike Mondo defeats Mike Sidal with a senton bomb. Again, decent enough match. Mike Mondo gets a 34 rating, Mike Sidal gets a 40. Again, it might be worth pushing Mike Sidal just that little bit more in that junior heavyweight division, but at the moment, Mike Mondo is the victor of this match. But then move from this. Brian Idol was on commentary for that match, and he comes into the ring and he says that he doesn't quite understand why Mondo is here in the NWA. He don't think Mondo quite gets the NWA way. The NWA is all about respect and tradition, and not some roided up Scott Steiner ripoff who's running around beating up the new junior heavyweights. Again, this sends Mike Mondo in a rage. He goes to attack Brian Idol, but Brian Idol manages to escape. And Mike Mondo says that he'll see Brian Idol once again tomorrow in the Crockett Cup Night 3. So we've got that match booked and ready for Night 3. A rematch between Brian Idol and Mike Mondo. But moving on from that, we go to a 37 rated match between the Immortals and the Diamonds in the Rough, in which the Diamonds in the Rough of Spencer Slade and Jeremiah Plunkett actually defeat the Immortals after Jeremiah Plunkett pins Kratos with the Nashville Nightlife. During the match, or during the end of the match, the Immortals split up as Odinson turns on Kratos. So Odinson has turned heel on Kratos. He decided he doesn't want to be a member of the Immortals anymore, and he turns his back on Kratos. And we'll handle the changes now, so we'll see how this heel turn went. Again, there was no real build to this. It was just a way to get Odinson out of this team, because again, I don't think Kratos is going to be here for much longer. But Odinson is getting a lot higher ratings than Kratos, so I think he can do a lot better. But we'll see how well this turn goes. Right, let's see how well this heel turn goes. If we turn him heel, turn's a complete success. Doesn't really have a gimmick change, but again, the turn goes well. So if we move from this, again, over to Odinson, who continues to beat down on Kratos. He says that now he's on his own, and he'll prove why he was the better man of the Immortals. So we'll see what happens between these two at Night 3. We then move on to a 44 rated match, a 6-person tag match in which EC3, Tom Latimer and Colby Corino defeat Max The Impala, Zion and Jay Bradley when EC3 submits Jay Bradley with The Purpose. Again, this match designed to tell a specific story. Father James Mitchell and Max The Impala are doing very well. Again, Jay Bradley was sort of the substitute in this match, but he doesn't actually do that bad. Only 1 point below our NWA World Heavyweight Champion, Tom Latimer. But EC3 has defeated the number 1 contender, Max The Impala, although he hasn't pinned them. He has still defeated them, so we'll see how this goes into the next segment. We then have EC3. He gets the microphone after his main event win, and he says that he's done more than earn his shot at the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, and he demands that the main event of Night 3 be turned into a triple threat between him, Max The Impala, who has earned their shot, and the World's Heavyweight Champion, Tom Latimer. And that is how the show fades to black. So we'll see what happens between these three people during Night 3. If we finish the show, we'll see what rating we are going to get. The show does indeed get a 45 rating. Again, 1 rating up from the last show. It increased our popularity in 18 regions, which obviously is very good. As we finish the show, we'll be able to see, we're able to go through our post-show goings on. So, if we address the locker room, we'll say well done to Colby Corino, who was quite good. Again, we'll praise them for a great performance. And then we'll talk to Carnage as well. Again, we'll compliment them on a good performance. If we make that speech, Colby Corino is pleased, and so is Carnage. Our financial report, we made $6,000 on the show. So again, we are turning a profit, which obviously is very good. And our popularity, there was some changes in there, but nothing is actually being raised, which again is fine. Again, that is the end of the show. We'll come back once we've reached the office so we can see how many viewers we did actually get and if there's any business we need to attend to. Right, so we'll have a look at any particular news other than Aubrey Edwards being jealous of her role within AEW and jealous of Paul Turner. But we will have a look to see what emails we have got. So, again, both Dylan McKay and Evan Rivers, their 2 appearance contracts have expired. Again, we may be bringing in Dylan McKay for more appearances in the future, but at the moment he has gone. James Mitchell's being hired by West Coast Pro. But our viewers for the Crockett Cup Night 2, we have about 20 or just under 23,000. Again, quite a good viewership. We'll see what that does to our finances, see how we're doing. So far, we've made just over 15 grand in terms of our popularity. We've slightly went up by 1 point in most regions, which we saw in NWA Crockett Cup Night 1. But as for the show, I will leave this there, and we will go through NWA Crockett Cup, the final, in the next episodes. That I did say this may be a bit long, so we'll have to split it up into 2. So your next week's episode number 2, will be the Crockett Cup final. So I hope you enjoyed this one. Like, subscribe, all that sort of stuff if you want to see more. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you once again in the Crockett Cup final. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.